My girlfriend said, I can't date one who doesn't support my OnlyFans. I said, I understand. It's your career. Then I subscribed. Her face went pale when she saw my first public comment and like under her new video. I, 29M, never thought I'd be the kind of person who'd care about social media or online content creation. My girlfriend had started an OnlyFans account 3 months into our relationship, and honestly, I didn't know how to feel about it at first. She sat me down one evening and explained that she wanted to pursue content creation as a legitimate career path. The money was good, she said, better than her retail job. She promised it would be tasteful, artistic even. I loved her, so I told her I'd support whatever made her happy. That was my first mistake. The next few months were strange. She became increasingly secretive about her phone, angling it away whenever I was nearby. Her posting schedule became erratic. Sometimes she'd lock herself in the bedroom for hours, claiming she was filming content. I respected her privacy and her work, even when my friends started making jokes about it. Then came a night, everything changed. We were lying in bed, and I mentioned maybe moving in together. Her lease was ending in 2 months, and it seemed like the natural next step after dating for nearly a year. She went quiet, the kind of quiet that makes your stomach drop. She told me we needed to talk. Those 4 words that never lead anywhere good. She said she'd been thinking about her career trajectory and her personal brand. She needed to be authentic, she explained, and dating someone who wasn't fully supportive of her work was holding her back. I asked what she meant by fully supportive, thinking maybe she wanted me to help with lighting or camera work. That's when she said it. She couldn't date someone who didn't support her OnlyFans. Not just tolerate it, but actively engage with it. Subscribe, comment, like, share. Be part of her community. When I hesitated, trying to process what she was asking, she took my silence as rejection. She told me she thought it was best if we took a break. Maybe saw other people. She needed someone who understood her world. I felt like I'd been punched in the chest, but I kept my voice steady. I told her I understood and that her career was important. We agreed to take some time apart. That was on a Tuesday. By Friday, I'd seen her post on Instagram. She was at a club downtown, dressed in an outfit I'd never seen before. Tagged in the photos was some guy with a carefully manicured beard and an influencer aesthetic. His bio said he was a content creator and business consultant. Of course he was. I did what any self-respecting person would do. I started digging. His social media was public, and he wasn't subtle. He'd been commenting on her posts for weeks, even before our conversation. Supportive messages about her content, her brand, her potential. I scrolled back further and found he'd been doing this with multiple women in the same space. A pattern emerged. He'd love-bomb them with professional advice and emotional support, position himself as indispensable, and then monetize access to them through collaborations and cross-promotions. My girlfriend wasn't his first target. She was just his latest. I sat with this information for 2 days, feeling anger give way to something colder. She'd chosen her career over me, which was her right. But she'd also been talking to this guy while we were together, letting him plant seeds of doubt about our relationship. That part stung differently. Then inspiration hit me at 3 in the morning. I couldn't sleep, scrolling through my phone mindlessly when I saw her latest post advertising new content. She'd rebranded slightly, going for a more sophisticated aesthetic. The preview looked professional. She was taking this seriously. I created a new account. Not under my real name, obviously. I used an old email address and picked a generic username. Then I subscribed to her OnlyFans at the highest tier. $50 a month for exclusive content and priority interaction. Money I'd have happily spent on her anyway when we were together. Her content was different than I'd imagined. More artistic than explicit, though definitely intimate. She'd clearly put thought into the production value. Part of me felt sad seeing how much effort she was putting into this new chapter of her life, one that didn't include me. But I had a plan. I spent the first week just observing, learning the community dynamics, seeing how other subscribers interacted. There was a hierarchy. Top subscribers got more attention, more personalized responses. The guy from the photos, the so-called business consultant, had his own subscription under a different name. I recognized his comment style. I started commenting thoughtfully on her posts. Nothing creepy or inappropriate. Just genuine appreciation for the artistic elements, asking about her lighting setup, complimenting her editing skills. She responded warmly, probably not recognizing anything familiar in my new persona. I tipped generously, became a regular presence. 2 weeks into my subscription, she posted something new, a video that was more personal than her usual content. She was talking to the camera about taking control of her life and her career, about cutting out people who didn't appreciate her worth. The boyfriend-turned-consultant was visible in one shot, sitting behind her camera setup. They thought they were being subtle. I watched it 3 times. Then I liked it, and I left a comment. I wrote about how inspiring it was to see someone so committed to their authentic self, even when it meant making hard choices. I mentioned how my own girlfriend had recently broken up with me over similar career ambitions. And while it hurt, I respected her decision to prioritize her growth. I wished her well and hoped she found someone who could match her ambition. Then I added a second comment, carefully worded. I talked about the importance of genuine support versus transactional support. How real partnerships were built on mutual respect, not on someone's ability to boost your metrics or expand your audience. I mentioned that I'd noticed a lot of creators getting involved with so-called consultants who were really just positioning themselves to profit from the relationship. I included a link to a thread on a creator forum discussing predatory business practices in the adult content space. The thread happened to feature screenshots of the consultant's conversations with multiple creators, showing his pattern of manipulation. I found it earlier in my research and saved it for the right moment. The comment stayed up for about 4 hours before she deleted it. But 4 hours was enough. Her other subscribers had seen it. Some had followed the link. Questions started appearing in the comments of her other posts. Who was helping with her production? Was she being taken advantage of? Several people shared their own experiences with manipulative consultants. My girlfriend went silent on social media for 2 days. Her Instagram story stopped. Her OnlyFans didn't get new content. I imagine the conversations she was having with the consultant, the doubts creeping in, the realization that maybe this guy wasn't as altruistic as he seemed. When she came back, she posted a statement. She thanked her supporters for looking out for her and confirmed she'd ended her business relationship with someone who hadn't had her best interests at heart. She was going independent, learning to manage everything herself. She seemed shaken but determined. I felt a small sense of satisfaction, but it wasn't enough. She'd tossed me aside for a fantasy, for someone who'd been using her. I wanted her to know exactly what she'd lost. Her next post was a photo shoot series, clearly done by herself, without the consultant's help. The quality had dipped slightly, the angles not quite as polished. She was trying hard, and I could see the effort. I left another comment. This time, I talked about the importance of having someone who supports you not for what you could do for them, but for who you are. I mentioned how my ex had amazing potential, but had let the wrong person convince her that support looked like exploitation. I said I hoped she found someone who saw her value beyond her content, beyond her subscriber count, beyond her earning potential. She didn't respond publicly, but I got a direct message an hour later. She asked if we could talk if I was the person I seemed to be in my comments. She said something about my writing style feeling familiar, my perspective hitting close to home. I didn't respond immediately. Let her sit with the uncertainty for a while. The next day, she posted something vulnerable, an essay-style caption with a simple photo. She talked about making mistakes, about letting ambition cloud her judgment, about losing someone important because she'd convinced herself that support meant something it didn't. She didn't name me specifically, but anyone who knew us would recognize the story. She talked about how she'd met someone who'd promised to help her career, who'd made her feel like she needed to prove her seriousness by cutting ties with anyone who wasn't all in on her vision. She believed him because he spoke her language, understood her industry, seemed like he was invested in her success. But he'd been invested in his own success, using her platform to boost his profile, planning collaborations that would benefit him more than her. She'd realized too late that the person who'd actually supported her, who'd cared about her happiness over her metrics, had been the one she'd pushed away. I read it twice. There was real regret there, real recognition of what she'd done. But regret doesn't undo damage. It doesn't erase the weeks of anxiety, the questioning of my worth, the feeling that I wasn't enough because I couldn't modify our relationship. I left one final comment. I told her that real support meant wanting someone to succeed on their own terms, not molding them into what worked best for you. I said that relationships built on transactional value would always crumble when the transaction stopped benefiting both parties. I mentioned that some people are worth fighting for, worth growing with, but only if both people are willing to do the work. Then I unsubscribed. 3 days later, she called me from her regular number. Not a message through OnlyFans, not a social media DM, but an actual phone call. I let it go to voicemail. She asked if we could meet, said she owed me an apology, wanted to explain everything. I listened to the voicemail 5 times before I decided how to respond. Update 1. I texted her back the next morning. Short and simple. I told her we could meet for coffee, somewhere public and neutral. She agreed immediately, suggesting a place near her apartment. I picked somewhere closer to mine instead. Small power move, maybe, but it mattered to me. She showed up 10 minutes early. I watched her through the window, fidgeting with her phone, ordering something and then barely touching it. She looked tired, the kind of tired that comes from stress, not just lack of sleep. I walked in exactly on time. When she saw me, her face went through about 6 different emotions. Relief, guilt, hope, fear. She stood up halfway like she might hug me, then sat back down when I just nodded and took the seat across from her. She asked how I'd been, and I told her I'd been dealing with things. She apologized immediately, said she'd made a huge mistake, that she'd been manipulated, that she hadn't seen what was happening until it was too late. I let her talk, didn't interrupt, didn't offer reassurance, just listened. She explained how the consultant had started commenting on her post back when she first started her OnlyFans. He'd been encouraging, professional, offered advice that actually worked. Her numbers grew. She felt validated. When I'd expressed hesitation about her career, he'd been there telling her that real partners lift each other up without judgment. He'd positioned himself as the example of what support looked like. Always available, always positive, always pushing her to do more. And slowly, he'd suggested that maybe I was holding her back. Maybe my lack of enthusiasm was a sign that I didn't really believe in her. She'd bought into it completely. By the time she'd had the conversation with me about not being able to date someone who didn't support her OnlyFans, she'd already been emotionally invested in him. She thought he understood her in ways I never could. Then my comment appeared, the one linking to the forum thread. She'd recognized my writing style immediately, even though I'd tried to disguise it. Something about the way I structured sentences, the words I chose. She'd known it was me. At first, she'd been angry. Felt betrayed that I'd subscribed under a fake name, that I'd been watching her content. But then she'd actually read the thread I'd linked, seen the screenshots of his conversations with other women, recognized the exact same script he'd used on her. She'd confronted him that night. He denied everything at first, called it jealousy from bitter exes and failed partnerships. But she'd pressed him, and eventually he'd admitted that working with her was mutually beneficial. He helped her grow. She helped him expand his network. Nothing wrong with that, he'd said. She'd asked him to leave, change her passwords, blocked him on everything, started over alone. I asked her why she was telling me all this, what she wanted from this conversation. She said she wanted me to know that she understood now, that I'd been right to have boundaries, right to question things, right to expect more from a partner than just blind validation of every choice. She'd confused support with enablement, and it had cost her the one person who'd actually cared about her as a person, not as content. She asked if there was any chance we could try again, start over, do things differently. I looked at her for a long moment, thought about the weeks of confusion and hurt, thought about watching her with someone else, knowing she'd chosen him over me, thought about the satisfaction of exposing him, of watching her realize her mistake. I told her I appreciated the apology and the honesty. But I also told her that you can't unring a bell. She'd shown me where I ranked in her priorities when it mattered. Career ambitions are valid. Wanting to grow and evolve is healthy. But she'd let someone else define what support meant in our relationship. She'd let him convince her that I wasn't enough. The hurt on her face was visible, but she nodded. Said she understood and that she was sorry. She wished she could take it back. I finished my coffee. Told her I hoped she figured things out, that she built the career she wanted on her own terms. But I couldn't be part of it anymore. Some things you can't come back from. I left her sitting there. Didn't look back. Update 2. That should have been the end of it. Clean break, lessons learned, everyone moves on. But life doesn't work like that. 2 weeks after our coffee meeting, I started noticing changes to her online presence. She'd rebranded completely. New aesthetic, new content style, new approach to engagement. Less about the explicit content, more about lifestyle and entrepreneurship. She was positioning herself as someone who'd learned hard lessons about business and relationships in the creator economy. Her follower count was growing again. She was doing interviews on podcasts about setting boundaries and avoiding predatory partnerships. She'd become the cautionary tale and the success story all at once. Part of me felt proud. She turned a mess into momentum. But another part felt strange, seeing her profit from the situation we'd lived through. Then came the post that changed everything again. She did a Q&A session on her platform. Someone asked about her relationship status and whether she'd date another content creator. Her answer was long and thoughtful. She talked about her previous relationship, how she'd let her ambitions blind her to what really mattered, how she'd had someone who supported her as a person, but she'd gotten caught up in the idea of needing someone who understood her industry. She said she'd learned that support isn't about being in the same space or understanding every detail of your partner's work. It's about respecting their boundaries, valuing their perspective, and building something together that doesn't require either person to compromise their core values. Then she said something that made my chest tight. She mentioned that sometimes the person you need is the one who tells you the truth, even when it's uncomfortable. The one who questions things not because they don't believe in you, but because they care enough to see the bigger picture. She never said my name, but she didn't need to. My phone blew up. Friends who knew about the breakup sent me screenshots. Asked if I'd seen it. Asked what I was going to do. I didn't know what to do. I'd walked away for good reasons. Valid reasons. But hearing her articulate exactly what I'd been trying to tell her months ago stirred something I'd tried to bury. I didn't reach out. Didn't comment. Didn't acknowledge it publicly or privately. I figured she was processing her own regrets, and that wasn't my responsibility to manage. But she didn't stop there. A week later, she posted about accountability, about how sorry doesn't mean much without change behavior. She talked about going to therapy to work through why she'd been so susceptible to manipulation, why she'd prioritized external validation over genuine connection. She announced she was taking a break from dating entirely, focusing on herself, her business, her growth. Said she needed to be the kind of person who deserved a real partnership before she could ask for one. My friend started asking if I was okay, if this was getting weird. Honestly, I didn't know. It felt like she was working through things publicly that should maybe have been private. But that was her way now. Everything was content. Everything was shareable. Then I got another message. This time not from her, but from someone I didn't recognize. The profile picture was generic, the name clearly fake. The message was short. It told me to check the consultant's recent posts. Said I might find it interesting. I almost deleted it. Seemed sketchy, potentially drama I didn't need. But curiosity won. The consultant had resurfaced. After going quiet following the exposure, he was back with a new angle. He'd rebranded as a victim of cancel culture, claiming he'd been targeted by a jealous ex-partner of one of his clients. He never named my ex specifically, but the timeline matched. He was painting himself as someone who'd done nothing wrong, just helped creators build their brands, and had been unfairly attacked. He had receipts, screenshots of positive messages from creators he'd worked with, testimonials about his professionalism, evidence of successful collaborations. He was building a counter-narrative, positioning himself as the real victim. And it was working. His follower count was growing. People were sympathizing with him, sharing his posts about false accusations in the digital age. I felt anger rising again. This guy had manipulated my ex, manipulated me by extension, and now he was playing victim to rebuild his reputation. But then I thought about what I'd learned from this whole mess. About not letting other people's narratives control my actions. About knowing when to walk away and when to stand firm. I made a choice. I created a thread on the same creator forum where the original expose had been posted. Laid out the entire timeline from my perspective. didn't use names, kept everything anonymous, but provided enough details that anyone paying attention could connect the dots. Included screenshots of his comment patterns, the dates they corresponded with my relationship timeline, the way he'd positioned himself as the alternative to partners who didn't understand the industry. I talked about emotional manipulation tactics, how predators in any industry identify vulnerability and exploit it, how they create dependency while claiming to empower, how they rewrite history when exposed, playing victim to maintain their access to new targets. The thread went viral in that specific community. Other people started sharing their experiences with him. More screenshots appeared. The pattern was undeniable. Within 48 hours, his comeback attempt was dead. Platforms started removing his content for violating community guidelines around manipulation. His follower count dropped. The sympathy dried up. My ex posted a simple statement. She thanked the community for supporting survivors and holding predators accountable. She said healing was possible and growth was real, but only when people faced truth directly. She didn't tag me or mention me. Didn't need to. I got one more message from her personal account. Just 2 words, thank you. I didn't respond. Didn't need to. Some endings aren't happy or sad. They're just finished. And sometimes finishing something properly is the best revenge of all. Not because you destroyed someone, but because you took away their power to define your story. I deleted the anonymous subscription account, unfollowed her on all platforms, stopped checking her posts. The closure I needed wasn't going to come from watching her journey anymore. It was going to come from building my own.